We're back today on YouTube, and today my goal is to give you a quick update on the vibe at Chiang Mai SEO, which is the biggest SEO conference in the world, about a very specific topic, which is SEO for e-commerce. So the Chiang Mai SEO, just so you know, it was last week. It's the city where I live in Thailand, and it's here that the biggest SEO conference in the world is organized. It's originally organized here, which is a bit strange. By the way, it's a bit odd for a small town in Thailand to host the biggest conference. SEO, but that's because Medigity, the biggest American SEO influencer, has been living here for about 10 years now. And so quite simply, he organizes an SEO conference here every year. One thing I noticed, something I really felt during this edition, is truly related to traditional SEO signals. So today, I'm going to give you a quick overview of how this translates to e-commerce, because it's important. And in this case, there really are things that have come along to change the traditional view we had of SEO. And now we're coming in with a much more holistic approach, marketing. I'm going to sign you up. It's going to be quite interesting. A lot of the information I'm going to share with you here comes from a talk by the founder of Studio Oak, which is an SEO agency in Melbourne. Well, Melbourne in Australia. In any case, that's for sure. I can't remember exactly which city. In any case, I'm going to show you here with a use case, specifically one they did on custom t-shirts, personalized t-shirts. And I'm going to show you some of the things they discovered. Get ready, this is going to be serious. You're going to discover new user signals that are much more powerful than we think. Basically, what she said in her talk, the founder of Studio Hawk, is quite simple. User interactions are becoming more and more important. They are increasingly significant for e-commerce, and they have become more important than content, more important than backlinks, etc. The collaboration she has with this site, which is one of her clients, the custom t-shirt site, I think I found it. I'm not 100% sure it's them. But based on the screenshots she showed in her talk, I think it was Real Thread. So there you go, quite interesting. Are you going to take a look? Why do I think it's them? Basically, what she's saying is the team she was working with kept saying, no, it's because we don't have good enough content. So the first thing she did was say, okay, let's put in some good content. So there you go, the classic, the little double line here. A lot of the product, that's normal in e-commerce. And below that, underneath, there's some more traditional SEO content, the kind you find in e-commerce, which isn't really read much, etc. With quite a few bullet points. She really went for it with the content. For e-commerce, it's rare to see this much content on an e-commerce site, especially on an e-commerce category page. So here, a lot of content was added. So her point, the point she wanted to make, the point she wanted to get across with the internal team at Real Suite was, no, guys, look, we've just added a ton of content. We have more content than average. Our semantics are better than average. What does that mean? It doesn't change anything. In the end, there's no change in the ranking. And so there you have it. They were 15th before adding the content. They're still 15th, 12th at the time they added the content. And you can tell that's not what's making the difference. In this case, that's not what's really going to drive growth at Real Thread. So the team on the other side says, well, there you go. We've added a lot of text. We've added all this content. What else can we do? What could we do in addition to that? Maybe add some backlinks. So that's one thing they do. They bombard with link building. You see, there are 32 referring domains, a URL rating of 17 on something like this in the US. If we look at all the others, I checked the others. I had my SERP open. At the URL, there's nothing. They're the ones who are loaded up at the URL. So it was them. And potentially we have Canva. Canva is always a bit different. Custom ink, but here it's the homepage. So clearly they're the only ones who have really loaded up the URL. And she explains it to us. We're going to have a Printful, which still has a very strong URL here too, but well, it's a bit different. It's not a t-shirt specialist. Underground t-shirt as well, but here it's the homepage, etc. In short, the idea was that we have this URL, we load it up with backlinks, we strengthen it, and that's something they've done. So we have a strong link profile for the SERP on this thing, something they didn't have historically before. So she really explains, there you go, we went to get backlinks for this site. For this URL, gradually, and we went directly to get this URL, we did a lot of backlinks. We patched each of the signals one after the other. First thing, the signals, the number one pillar of SEO is content. So that was taken care of, this content problem. The second pillar of SEO, obviously, is no longer content, but rather net linking and backlinks. So that's something that was done. Take a look, you can see the explosion in traffic on the URL. You can really see it. So we can look at the number of referring domains there were, and you can see that it was done gradually. We're looking at the last 6 months. If we look at the past 2 years, in my opinion, you can see better growth. So there you go. They barely had about 10, and they increased little by little, went up to 20, then 25, then 30, and so on. And even if we look over a slightly longer period, we can see that initially they had 5. It increased gradually. They had more than everyone else, but it wasn't enough to trigger a big traffic boost. Even with 20 referring domains, they were here, positioned here with 5,000 in traffic. That wasn't the level of ambition they had. They wanted to do more. So basically, that's what she's explaining to us. She explains to us that by adding backlinks, it doesn't change the situation. We still don't have enough authority, and we're not going after the big traffic. Problem number 1, fixed. Problem number 2, fixed. She gets to the final situation, the third problem. And here, in fact, they tackle user signals, which was her initial lead. From the very beginning, she said, here it is. In my opinion, the problem is user signals, and we need to prioritize the user experience. Personally, I am it's not something I would say I hate, because that's far from the case. But it's always been something that has it gives me goosebumps, chills down my spine to talk about user experience, because it's something that is, unfortunately, I find it very hard to measure. So I've always been more in favor of saying, let's do A/B testing and have metrics from A/B tests. And that's how you measure a real experience, user experience. That's what she did, obviously. And so little by little, they did a huge number of A/B tests on lots of different factors. And they added a lot of things. One of the first things was, for example, A/B tests at the navigation level. So typically, those little icons at the top of a category to make navigation easier. And for someone who arrives on this category, they can click on these icons to improve their navigation time. The number of pages viewed per visit, that's something important. On top of that, obviously, you have more links. So more links for Google means more crawling. More crawling means better ranking, generally speaking. And basically, there's also this effect where you see lots of little icons. So here, that's great. It will help with crawling, ranking, etc. And also with navigation. So double effect. A positive effect, in this case, pure and simple navigation for the user with more pages viewed and an increased session duration. And indeed, for Google as well. Then what she obviously did on each of the jerseys, they measured a lot of things. So here, regarding the colors, they reviewed that exactly. They increased a lot of things above, the fold at the top. And as you can see here, they removed the menu. So now we're really switching landing mode, sales page. And their goal is really to go towards Adrohard. I can get to Dartois, so start customizing this t-shirt. So that's really what they pushed for. There you go. And when you click on that, you get here, you can start uploading a logo, etc. and so on. So their goal is really to go in there and simplify the process to make everything flow smoothly through that channel and have something that's highly optimized. And so you can feel it here. Honestly, this is a page. I've rarely seen an e-commerce page this optimized. No more menus or anything. We're at the bottom of the funnel. The goal is to click and generate sales now, to actually generate customization and personalization. So that's extremely powerful, honestly. Anyway, that's what they're doing. So you can really feel when she tells us this, that there is an increasing importance placed on this part. You'll see what's next. The results are pretty crazy. And so a lot of A/B testing. And the goal was to improve the CTR, to improve navigation, to improve the average revenue per visit. So basically, it's just the conversion rate, more or less. She didn't have her immediate conversion rate, I think, because of the A/B tests due to a detail regarding the payment pages. But basically, she could know her average revenue rate. A bit strange, but well, anyway. And so you can tell that it was worked on, it was improved, it was A/B tested. It took dozens of iterations to arrive at the best version. So they reached this best version where they know they're increasing each of these metrics. But that's not all. That's not all. It's already huge to have all that, but that's not all. Something else they do, and others do as well. They say to themselves, for example, we know that in e-commerce, a huge amount of product and business traffic comes through the merchant center. What is the merchant center? I'll show you very quickly. In the US, we have it not directly, but it's everything that happens on shopping. Shopping, what's with that accent, Leo? On shopping. So here, basically, this is what we'll have. The merchant center, so quite simply, all the products, etc., that will be displayed here. And so all of this, it's directly pulled from your product feed. On Shopify, for example, it's done more or less automatically. If you're on another CMS, sometimes it's done well, sometimes it's done poorly. The best thing is to connect it, your product feed, to Google Merchant Center. If you need help with that, don't hesitate to contact me. But basically, the goal was to have a lot of visibility, a lot of impressions in the Merchant Center. And one of the problems they had, for example, was that on the Merchant Center, their price, you can see it here, $20 per t-shirt for 20 t-shirts. Basically, they thought if we display $20 here per t-shirt, it's going to seem expensive. It's going to add up. People are going to have a pretty low click-through rate. So what did they do? They added the order a sample option, which allows you to order a test t-shirt. And what they do is for the samples, they lowered the prices. The goal was to be able to display a price point on the merch center that was lower than what they originally had. So here we can see that normally it's $20. Here it's going to be $15 if you order a sample for a t-shirt. And so this allows them to display a price point here on the merch center that's lower, but also not ridiculously low, like some of the ones you see at the bottom. I've seen one that was at 1 cent. Well, there you go, 1 cent. We know that we're dealing with a scam, that it's something that's not real. What? So the goal was to have something interesting, something real, and that would increase their CTR. The second thing they did was also improve the photos. So basically, as she explained, the t-shirt photos are pretty much always the same thing. She tried to get as many different ones as possible and to have lots of nice photos with models, etc. She avoided just the traditional t-shirt view, all folded, all white, not worn, etc. So she explained that there was work done on the photos to improve the CTR as well. Again, the goal here is to improve the CTR. Every time when we talk to you about experience, when it comes to user experience, ask yourself, what is the metric that the person is putting forward? Because someone who talks to you about interface or experience without mentioning metrics, in my opinion, personally, is just a snake oil salesman. That's not always the case, but still, not all the time. There are questions of brand image and messaging, etc., that need to be conveyed, which are a bit different. But be careful, very often people tend to overuse this approach when we could actually be using metrics. For each of these things, you can put metrics in front of them. So there's a lot of work to be done on this, with a huge amount of A/B testing. She looks for the best price points to increase the CTR. She increases the number of reviews she can display on the market center. She improves the photos. The goal is really to say we're going to improve all the metrics that are truly user-focused. Now that we've worked on content and backlinks, it's something else that needs to be done. So what does she do? She launches the A/B test. Everything is good. Everything is solid. She tests on, well, a lot of things. So there are also widgets that she tested, little customizable things where you could, in my opinion, work on the artwork the moment when you add photos, etc. So there you go, a lot of tests on that. The price of a sample, that's what I was talking about as well. And a huge number of elements above the fold. That's something she mentioned many times in the questions after the conference. It's quite simple. People who land on a product page, you can increase your conversion rate dramatically. She said there are two things to focus on. E-commerce when you're doing SEO, dramatic increase in conversion rate on the product page. So honestly, for me, this product page is a masterclass. But anyway, let's move on. The second thing is to improve navigation when you're on a category page. So when you're on a category page like this, make sure that the navigation here or here, for example, is optimal. Here, I'm showing you in PC mode. I shouldn't be. I should be showing you in mobile mode. Because we're on YouTube, it's still more appropriate. Then after improving all that, basically she does a lot of A/B tests. Everything is up. CTR is up, retention is up, engagement is up, average rates per visit are up. It takes a lot of time to do A/B tests. It's a lot of energy, etc. These are services we can help you with because it's not easy. We're a web agency for those discovering us, actually an SEO agency to be precise, not a web agency. And we help improve SEO performance. Obviously, like her, if you come to us with your e-commerce, the first thing we'll do is make sure that the content and backlinks are aligned because those are the traditional SEO signals. But SEO is changing, and so it's important to move towards user signals and to have this focus on user signals. So if that's the case, we'll move towards A/B testing, and we would be more than happy to develop A/B testing for you so you can achieve the same results she got with RealThread. And I'll tell you directly, the results she got with RealThread, they were in 12th place. But when they implemented it, put it live, so implemented 100% on the site, all the A/B tests they had done, because basically we do a lot of A/B tests. And then what she did was once she had everything, she asked the developers to package it all up, and the developers implemented it just like that. And then what happened? An explosion in traffic, an explosion in rankings. That's what happened in August, basically around the middle of this year. And I even think that when she was talking to us at the conference, etc., it was probably last year or 2 years ago, they went from 15th to 6th place in the month they made the implementations. So we're really talking about a substantial gain in ranking and something that drives business. Because at 15th, 12th, 12th, 15th place, you don't make any sales. But at 5th, 6th, 5th place, you make sales. And that was really in just 1 month. So really based on very direct signals, she created strong growth immediately. So in this case, it generated a lot of business for them. And here we have just 1 month based on user signals, where we know that Google uses what we call a calculation over a timeline. Google doesn't calculate user signals at a single point in time. It collects data over several months before allowing them to improve. And that's also why, in my opinion, at this point for custom t-shirt, she's no longer 5th or 6th, but 2nd or 3rd. There you go, it changes quickly, currently 4th. But when I Googled it the first time, she was 1st. In my opinion, it also changed because of that. Google tracks a lot of what we're doing. Since it saw that I visited the site 10 times and still haven't bought anything, it thinks that's strange. It wants to show me the ad again. Anyway, all this to say that we had a huge gain with only navigation factors on site and no content, no backlinks. Yes, those were put in place before or beforehand, but afterwards, that's not what triggered the big jump in ranking. It really was, in this case, the navigation factors, the traditional e-commerce factors, the sales factors, the factors that were A/B tested. All of this is still pretty impressive when you come from SEO in 2015, where you only had to focus on content. And backlinks, where every e-commerce site had their little block of text at the bottom of the category page. I'm not going to lie to you, I still do it. So let's not point fingers at each other. But basically, this factor is becoming more and more important. So how do you apply this to your e-commerce? The first thing is, personally, the A/B testing tool I've used is a tool called VWO. I used it because it's not very expensive on the smaller plans. So for example, let's take a look at it together. But I think if you have 10K, so 10,000 visits per month, it's free. Even with 50,000 visits per month, you can be on a basic plan for free, so to speak. And then starting from 100,000 visits per month, you start having to pay. So that still gives us some leeway, room for negotiation, and room for A/B testing. Honestly, if you're already hitting 50,000 visits per month with A/B testing, that's plenty to work with. So thank you. We're dealing with something that's pretty nice. It's what I personally use. So don't hesitate, install VWO and start A/B testing right away. And I've actually had some use cases that were quite effective. Personally, I increased the click-through rate on internal links by 20% on one of the sites we managed. So it's something that works, and I recommend you do it, because a 20% increase in the click-through rate on internal links means a much higher number of pages viewed per visit, and so on. You need to look at navigation, at the links, at how people navigate and why they navigate. How many pages per visit do we have, and so on? Can we increase that? Actually, it's quite simple. How can we achieve increasingly fine categorization, have well-balanced facets, and so on? All the elements that make up traditional navigation in e-commerce. The breadcrumb trail is obviously important for SEO, even more so. In short, add more internal links. Do it with things that are appealing, clickable, little templates, small widgets, and so on. Just like on RealThread here, for example, with the little icons. That's something that's nice to make clickable. Pretty friendly on mobile. Be careful on mobile, because if you add icons at the top, the products might get pushed down. So it's all about finding the right balance. Maybe you need 2 rows of products, then a row of icons, then 2 more rows of products. These are things you can create. This is to improve navigation without breaking the traditional e-commerce flow. And the 2 priority areas, be careful, are really your category page, because that's where navigation starts. That's usually where the SEO landing page is, and so on. And the product pages for conversion. Product pages are really conversion pages. So think of them as sales pages and really build them effectively like sales pages. Obviously a short text, SEO, etc. That's good, probably further down the page. And at the top, go for a sales page approach. I think the idea of removing the menu from product pages is excellent, by the way, but I don't know if I would dare do that with my clients. I think we're going to push it for a while, because seeing it now, it's really too powerful. Above the fold, just so you know, at Chiang Mai SEO, all the t-shirts had above the fold written on them. That was the merchandise they were offering. It's really an important topic, whether on mobile or desktop, and working on the fold lines. Make sure the fold lines are well designed, that people are engaged with what you want them to be, that they're engaged. Don't overload it. It's as simple as that. If you have 4 different CTAs, people get lost. So there should be one effective CTA above the fold. And in their case, they increased their conversion rate, as they said, by 15% just by improving the above the fold, so the ATF. What does that mean? It means 15% more revenue overnight without needing to deploy resources on backlinks, content, etc. And if SEO scales afterwards, the conversion rate stays the same, it scales along with it. So huge conversion rate, 15% additional revenue, day one, not very complicated to do, plus it helps with SEO. Well, honestly, I'm going for it. I think it was Amazon that also had those little widgets, the small things with emojis, icons. So that's something I had noted. We work on UX, we work on internal linking. How do we track this as well? There are several ways to track this. Obviously, with analytics, with Google Analytics, you'll get all those signals. I know that since GA4, people aren't fans of Google Analytics, but you have to get back into it to track this. VWO, which I showed you earlier, Visual Website Optimizer, will also allow you to track all of this with A/B testing. And you can also wait, hold on, I lost my train of thought. VWO, Google Analytics, and Microsoft Clarity, or there are others, but typically Clarity lets you do session tracking. Be careful, depending on where you are located. If you're in the European Union with GDPR, you need to make sure you get proper consent before tracking users. But it will allow you to see user sessions, identify pain points, and get ideas for improvements. Microsoft Clarity is very interesting, even if it does have a bit of an impact. Your SEO performance. I know that performance purists will say, no, but it's going to slow down my site. But honestly, it's worth it. I guarantee you it's worth it. If you use it, it's worth it. So there you go. It's really something interesting. And you need to work on what they call micro interactions. So basically, all the little things that will work well, work. So typically, clicking a link is a micro interaction. Changing the color of the t-shirt is a micro interaction. Anything that can create mini interactions will help a lot. It's really important for us to have that at the top. But there you go, a little chat and a quick call directly with the phone, pretty efficient. In short, we work on micro interactions, like viewing an image as a micro interaction. Basically, we have plenty to work with when it comes to all that. So all this is to say that while in e-commerce, content is starting to take a backseat, content is really starting to take a backseat. It's important to have it, and they do have it. They haven't removed their content. YouTube as a micro interaction is extremely effective. I've actually seen some very interesting things in e-commerce with little stories. I can share a case. It's one that was brought to my attention by the team. Thank you, Tristan, for bringing this very interesting case to me. French mush. So in terms of micro interactions, you'll see it's pretty impressive. Now here, it's clearly overloaded. Too many choices, in my opinion. But let's move on, and that's true. I don't have them because I have too many ad blockers, so I can't see it. I'll try to disable them quickly to see if I can get it back. No, you see, I don't have any filtering, and yet I still don't have it, so really. But in this case, they have little videos. If you check on your site, you'll see little videos here. Really nice for micro interactions. In terms of content, so they obviously have content, and it's content that's still important and well crafted, but it's less important, and Google is currently reducing the overall importance of content. So there you go. I advise you not to focus too much on content. I also advise you not to focus too much on net linking. We saw this the other day with Romain Pirot, with whom I was making a video. We're going to look at a query, which is a vending machine query chat. I think it's a pretty interesting query. Here we're going to find, normally there's one or two sites with user metrics that I had seen, which were really PetKit. It's quite interesting. I think it was them, to be precise. On this SERP, PetKit is really an anomaly. You'll see why. In terms of the number of backlinks, etc., PetKit has very few backlinks. At the time, they were second or third, I think, when we looked at them. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was for the query automatic cat feeder. I'll try to check them very quickly. Done. Let's see if we have them here. And if it's good, no, it wasn't this one either. Well, anyway, so PetKit, in this case, quite an anomaly because very few backlinks compared to the competition. But what's happening with PetKit is that they have an extremely strong brand. So there you go. That's really the example here. We have, with PetKit, you might think, well, no, they're not going to rank because they don't have backlinks. And it's true that they have few backlinks compared to their competitors. They have 50 referring domains. We're looking at something that's not very powerful. Compared to competitors, let me find them for you. They have 50 referring domains compared to their competitors. Their competitors are Jardiland, Maxiso with 1,800, 3,000 referring domains. There's also Catite France with 200 referring domains. In short, their authority is overall much weaker than their competitors. But what's happening is that they have a much stronger brand. Whereas for PetKit, there are 1,800 searches for the keyword PetKit every month. So clearly 2,500 visits are coming to the homepage. So what does that mean? It means that this is a powerful query. It means that this is a flagship site for the brand. And so net linking is declining. And it's declining because there's more and more emphasis on the brand and on these kinds of things. So clearly, it's still interesting to do backlinking for e-commerce, but the power of backlinks is declining compared to the strength of the brand and user signals and so on. So that's what I'm saying here. You need to strengthen the brand. That's what's important. You need to reinforce those aspects and try to have something that will be more browser oriented. How do we go about strengthening all of that? You're going to tell me very often it comes down to advertising. French mesh, that's advertising. It's spam on Meta with stories being used as ads. Visual and video ads. Cindy Crum, during her talk at Chiang Mai SEO, also said that short video content on mobile is booming. It's huge. Hollywood is currently buying up specialized studios in this area. So we're really seeing a genuine trend here. And as a result, content is becoming increasingly important. SEO, video, mobile, do advertising. That's what brands like Fresh Muse are doing actually. They advertise on mobile, usually highlighting things like our mushroom will help you focus and so on. If you were selling t-shirts, you'd need to find an advertising angle. That's not my area of expertise. Unfortunately, advertising is something that will help you build brand awareness, just like our friends at PetKit have done here. But beyond brand awareness, it will also force you to work on your site navigation, because you can't afford to have a poor conversion rate when you're paying for every click. That's something where in SEO, people are used to pushing it. More SEO without caring about their conversion rate. But really, the future is all about conversion rates. It's about making sure you have brand awareness and so on. This can also be done organically if you do it organically. Quite simply, it's a lot of content, a lot of video content, vertical videos or YouTube videos, just like I'm doing right now as I'm doing it here. By the way, it's partly to build my brand, my reputation, and to try to bring value to people so they remember, so they visit my site. Thank you. Next, I will need to work on my navigation because it is not perfect, but it is in progress. Don't worry. And behind all these signals, it will allow us to create brand awareness. There are many other ways you can build brand awareness and reputation. Cold mail, for example, works on a very large scale. However, if we want to create recurring brand awareness, etc., organic video content works very well. Visual advertising works very well. If tomorrow I put up big billboards, Leo Potvin, Astrak, and CEO in the subway, I can tell you one thing, I will create brand awareness and very, very strongly. Will it be profitable? I don't think so, but it's going to be intense. So there you go. That's how we're going to create it. That's how we're going to do all of this. A few extra points for you. These are bonus points. You followed the whole Studio Hawk use case, but that's not the only use case we had. We also had some quite interesting use cases from Surfer SEO, who shared a bit with us. The most important criteria in 2026, which are, in my opinion, particularly relevant for e-commerce. The first is actually this part, TTFB, speed, responsiveness, two very important criteria. TTFB, which stands for time to first byte, remains a very important criterion in e-commerce. It's the server response time in e-commerce, especially because it facilitates crawling, and crawl budget is important in e-commerce. And also because it allows users to get a very fast response, which overall increases the conversion rate. Loading speed is also one of the very important factors. Both are among the top 10 factors in things that can be easily detected on site and that can be measured from the outside. Unfortunately, the Surfer study did not measure them. Thank you. Things like brand power or time spent per visit, because they don't have the data for everyone. But they do have enough data on content, on-site factors, and technical measurements to include these two criteria. TTFB loading speed is in the top 10 of the most important criteria. Focus on your TTFB. We've said it since 2010. People said it before I started. TTFB was important then and still matters. It's still something that matters. Overall, a lot of people on the small black hat side, this will also interest some of you. On the black hat side, many people say that pure CTR is good, but that's not what's crucial. Pop traffic tends to be a bit less effective these days. And the reality is probably in a third option, one that we've barely explored so far, but that I'm currently exploring with Matin, starting today, which is manipulating CTR along with manipulating engagement afterwards. So people will create engagement, they'll go and revisit the site. Engaged, actually, quite simply. This is something that's very hard to fake and overall not profitable to do through faking. It's better to build it genuinely over the long term, but if you want to fake it, we're currently working on it. You can contact us for that. We can give you demos of things we're currently faking. It would be a service that would be quite expensive, I'm telling you in advance, because it's a service that's complicated, very technical, and would be mainly interesting for highly competitive topics with high average baskets. So there you go. If you have something like that, if you're already in the top 15 and you want to activate something a bit wild and you've already pushed hard on backlinks, content, and lab testings, come see us. We're going to do something for you that will send you into the top 5, we hope. We could ask ourselves a bit about the reason why. Why is Google making this shift towards these new signals? I think there are 2 main reasons. The first is that analyzing the quality of content is difficult. And in the age of AI, it's even more relevant because anyone can create excellent content very easily. Backlinks remain a strong factor, but overall, it's still something that's quite easy to manipulate. We've seen it. And as for technical structure, almost everyone is good at it now. So there's not really any effort being put into that anymore. So this triptych that we had historically is gradually losing its value little by little. And actually, brand signals, user signals, and conversion are things that are going to be tracked in Chrome. So there you have it. Google has accepted it. We track with Chrome. We see how much time people spend, etc. That allows us to get information about the site. And these are the signals currently used by the algorithms of YouTube, Google Discover, LinkedIn, Facebook, and all the social networks. So if all the social networks, basically everyone except Google, are using something else now, other than content signals, backlinks, etc., maybe Google needs to start doing the same a bit. And that's exactly what it's doing. Overall, it's adapting its algorithm to move toward modern algorithms, which are really just engagement and user signal algorithms. We still have a bit of time with content, backlinks, etc. But overall, we're going to have to gradually move toward engagement, user engagement, because that's something important. Just so you know, in the Surfer SEO study, content and content quality, to be precise, we're not going to say quality because quality doesn't really mean anything, but the semantic diversity of content is still the biggest signal, as it can still be measured in a traditional way. So there you have it. We're not in 2028 yet, but I'm showing you what, in my opinion, Google will look like in the future. This shift began after 2023. The major turning point was September 2023 and the full contact. An update that focused on user signals, brand, and retention. This is what destroyed affiliate sites because, in fact, they had none of that. And so there you have it. So SEO in 2026, that's kind of our conclusion. SEO in 2026 is no longer traditional SEO. It's no longer about content. It's no longer about backlinks. It's about CRO. It's about A/B testing. It's about conversion. It's about navigation. It's that kind of thing. If you need help setting all this up, if you're wondering whether your site should first have content, backlinks, a bit of the fundamentals of SEO, or if you should go straight to things like navigation, don't hesitate to contact me. That's what we're here for. I have an agency called Astrak Agency, an SEO agency that helps, currently working with more than 30 clients, with 5 or 10 e-commerce sites on all possible CMSs to improve their performance. Don't hesitate at all. It would be a real pleasure to work with you. And with that, see you soon. Enjoy, rank high, test, A/B test, and convert to try to make money online. Thank you all. Goodbye.